Three lines from the end of the first paragraph that begins with Yotet, that was Yotes. The line begins with Goliv Glifu. We're talking about the sphirot agnosis, which is the shorish and the mocker of the kav. These sphirot agnosis, the Ma'atzilon, Rebbe is explaining that the gnusis does not mean that they are stashed away there, but it means that they are part and parcel of the Ein Sof. They contained within the Ein Sof not by an identifiable presence, but completely united with it. And the motion for this is the nefesh. Pardon me. Nefesh has all the koiches, and yet the nefesh in totality is only one. Thank you. And all the koiches do not render the nefesh as being a multiple of entities. All the koiches are rooted in the achdus of the nefesh itself. And then following that principle, the Rebbe said that this is true even in shorosh hakelim, and surely in the unit von oir. This is where we were up to yesterday. I don't know if you're up to discussing this. The question here that I'm going to try and focus in and get you with me. Why oiris is kol shekain? And if oiris are kol shekain, so then how come by kelim we say the same thing? That kelim also do not add anything. So by oiris it says kol shekain. And the Rebbe says kol shekain b'shorshei ha'oiris shehein b'bchinas bli ma. And that is because oiris are b'bchinas bli ma. They have that bechina, they have that element. The way they present themselves is blima, without a personal identity. And yet they are oiris. They're expressions of the nefesh. So let me just finish this. Okay, the third line, at the end of the third line from the bottom. Umemela, move on. And thus is understood, shein behem ischalkus. Clearly that there is no subdivision in the oiris, since that they are blima. They do not have a personal presence. Liyo is chochma, sphirot levado, or bina sphirot levado. They're blima, so therefore it is not, clearly it cannot be that chochma should be a sphirot levado, a sphirot unto itself. And bina, sphirot levado, bina sphirot unto itself. They're not operating independently of each other. Since that in the very essence of their presence, what they stand for, they're not in the Bechin of Metzius. I'll discuss Bechin of Metzius again in a moment. Memele, and therefore, they are in a way of Eruv, of mix together with Achdus, and not only mixed, but actually unity among themselves, among all the spheres and so forth. The spheres and even the koiches, even the kelim, as we said, is also true.
The culture came seems obvious because kelim ultimately do become a mitzias, whereas oros never become a mitzias. They're always pointing to their shorish.
They're always connected to the shorish, but they do represent a separate message. That's why you have sphirot HaChochma and sphirot HaBina. It is not that simple. As much as we can get into it and explain it, we will do. But we have to follow through on all the nuances that are mentioned along the path. Number one, we have to discuss the term Bebechinas Metzius. We discussed many times that the word Bechina is a very subtle, nuanced type of a presentation. Bechina means it is there, but it is not there. It is and it is not. Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah attests that Moshe Rabbeinu was onav me'oid mekol ha'adam asher al pnei ha'adam. You know what I'm saying? Moshe Rabbeinu was an onav, very much of an onav, beyond all other people in the world. The entire world. Was Moshe Rabbeinu a non-entity? He stood up to party and stood up to have all legs. So whatever it needed to be stood, I stayed. To the Merali, he got down. He came down from the mountain. He saw the Egel. He went in full force and in action, instantaneously. He took the egel and he melted it down. He broke it down into powder. And he made everybody drink from that mix. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu says himself, the Torah says that he was an Omer, says, "V'nachnu mo." Nachnu mo means me and my brother Ayin. What are we? What are you arguing about? What are you complaining to us? Why are you arguing on us? Why are you pointing a finger at us? We are mo. This is a principle which is difficult to understand even in Neures, and much more so in Kalim. So, for starters, we did yesterday, and I'm not going to go, spend a whole bunch of time on this. Eventually, it'll become more and more meaningful. To say that we fully understand it is completely out of reach, because it's not seichel. It's not really within the reach of seichel. But to understand what we don't understand is also important. The other day, I asked a question in class. This question came up at me because of some discussion I had with somebody else. Where somebody says that the fundamental presence in the world is nothingness. And this nothingness allows for everything to be developed because it's nothing. It has no resistance to anything. So I explained to him, no, the basis, the fundamental presence in the world is godliness. There's a godly will and there should be a world. Not nothingness. Now, if this is the case, it would sound, nothingness is a total open field. Anything you want to put there, it's unlimited. If you say that there is a defining element to it, this is godliness, that means that there is some kind of a borderline, there's kind of a limit. So I ask a question. By saying that it is godliness, do we therefore limit the possibilities in the world? Do we limit the possibilities in the world, or do we increase the possibilities in the world?
We increase.
So we already had this out, and we kind of spontaneously everyone answered. If I would ask them to explain why, that would be quite challenging. But everybody answered the sense that no, that increases, that makes it bigger, greater. I'd like we should, since everybody kind of concurred, everybody spontaneously responded in this manner, that means that there is that sense in the nefesh, in the intelligence. I'd like we should think into it a little bit. It would seem to be counterintuitive. And everybody says, no, it increases it. How can it possibly increase it? Okay, I'm going to say whatever I can think of saying, and you can add to it if you or dispute it. When you are in nothingness, every step of the way, you have to find an inspiration, a force to create that step. If you in nothingness, every step by day you have to find new strength to make that step. You have to, in every step, you have to break through a barrier, the barrier of nothingness. And create a somethingness. Whereas when we say no, that the fundamental reality is the godliness, God who creates everything and provides for everything and wants everything to be, then everything is there automatically. It's a question only to reveal it.
everything is there, including nothingness.
No, nothingness is... So this, everything is there. This is what we're talking about here. This everything is there is not a restrictive presence. Everything is there, and everything is representing the infinity of the source. Yesterday, and I want to repeat this, yesterday we spoke on the kalim level. When the kalim, the chametzias, how can you say that this is included in the Ayin Seif? So again, to definitively explain these words is quite challenging. Just want to point to how do we see it on the kalim level. The principle in kalim that you have a presence. Oile says blima. Blima means you can't even give it a name because there's nothing. There's no tangibility to it. Kalim are tangible entities, and as such, you can give them a name, as we said in the Chumash. Everything that the Rebbe created, he gave it a name. What is the significance in Torah? As we point out many times, the name is of a central significance. What's significant about the name? The name renders this presence as a must be. If you have something and it has no name, it is there by default. As long as it doesn't interfere, you let it be. A name means that it has a positive presence. It's a must be. The completion of creation in everything is when it was given a name. And light and called Yom, and then it's called Laila. And the human being, when he created him, what he gave him? Adam. He called him a name Adam. What is the significance of that? Of all that? And Chayas, also named, but he had Adam Rishon name. It's on a different level. Where is that reality for naming of the object come from? It comes from the source of sources. Naming an object, naming it means that it gives it a positive presence. The positive of presence is rooted in the source of sources, in the Meibash himself. Something is there by default because nothing is interfering with my presence. That doesn't make me acquire a name. Where do I get a name from? My basic presence is nothingness. How do I get a name? This is why I can't be honest. me just see what. Oh, you know that. Apitoira, and this is our very strict minhag. The Rebbe insisted on it, that a child is named by his parents. If the parents would come to the Rebbe, he should suggest a name. The Rebbe says, "What's this?" Can we now complete the sentence? We have discussed this principle many times. Come on.
The reality of the child is based in the parents.
The fact that he has parents.
It must be.
This was connects him to the must be before him, and his parents to must be before them, all the way up to the other Manisha.
So to everything has a name because it's included in the primary source. And
that's right. So this kind of reality, which gives it a personal presence, a name, which gives it, so to speak, a real presence, that is rooted in the fact that in the roots of roots, if it were not included in reality, you couldn't name it. It would be a joke to name it. It would be just a conventional thing. This is the pshat. Now, before I go in Mishra pshat, if these things were contained in the source as independent entities, it still doesn't have that reality of the source. It has its own little path. So we're saying no. What gives it substance? The entire source, the reality of the source itself. And this is where it's rooted from, and this is why it has a name which becomes as solid as the source. This is the interesting thing. It is not present there, and yet this is where it gets its reality. Because this infinite source is so infinite that it provides for infinite details as well.
This is the idea of the Esser Sphirot Saganuzos being included in the
Ayin Sof. Okay.
Sorry, you're going to say something.
Always. All right, let's just continue a little bit further. To try to understand this, Specifically, we're going to focus on the following question. How is it that there in the Ayin Soif there is 10 spheres? Which means all 10 spheres. But behold, yesh bahem madreges hafochim. Among the 10 spheres there are madreges that are opposite one another. And yet, they're all contained, part and parcel in the same actus, in the same union, in one thing. K'moi chesed und gvura, such as chesed und gvura, shehein k'mei eish u'may. Chesed und gvura, what you always said, Chesed and Gvura is like fire and water. Chesed and Gvura, to us, may appear to be just a functional identification. And the act is described as the act of chesed or the act of gvura. But in reality, chesed and gvura is not just on the act level. Like I mentioned the other day, everything that a person does, the entire nefesh is expressed in it. It's a nefesh expression, capability. I gave a very simple illustration. Anybody who ever nailed in a nail knows that you have to have a sense and a feel of what you're doing. Don't have a sense and feel what you're doing. You're going to be banging a nail, it's going to come out in all kinds of different ways. And this thing that you have to sense and feel what you're doing is not just to know what it means to bang a nail. You have to sense and feel what this nail is going to do in the place where you're nailing it. And how that's going to happen. Okay, this is it for this morning. And we will nail the nail further down tomorrow mitzvah.
Mitzvah,